Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 5, activating Starseeds, walk-ins, and the new human of the Golden Age. I'm your host, Waxela Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Xane Daniel. Welcome, Zayn.
Hi.
Hi.
Great to be here.
I'm happy you're here. It's great to have you. So we're going to jump in just a moment, but I'd love to invite everyone to do a short alignment process so we can all get focused and grounded before we begin. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes and deepen your breath into the belly. As you're breathing, getting present and focused, balanced and aligned. And as you're breathing into the heart center, make contact with the light in your heart and feel that heart light glowing and growing out around your chest. And now feel that light spreading into every energy center of your body. And bring that energy up now, far above your head, into the core center, the heart of the central sun. Making contact with the heart light of central sun, and bring that energy down into the crown of your head, down your spinal column, lighting up every chakra along the way to the base of the spine. And then continue that energy down, drawing a line all the way down into the core center of Mother Earth, making contact with the heart center of Mother Gaia. And now bring that heart light from the center of the earth up through the layers of the earth, carrying liquid crystal plasma into the base of the spine, up the spine, into every energy center, and into every cell of your body. And now join those three energies from above, below, and within in the center of your heart, creating a holy trinity of light, bringing us balance, focus, groundedness, and awareness so that you may receive whatever is for your highest good in this conversation and activation today. And now with that, thank you for joining me. You can go ahead and open your eyes, hopefully feeling refreshed. And I'd love to share a little bit about what Xane is up to. Xane Daniel is a Hathor Energy Healer, Ascension Coach, TV host, founder of the Higher Self Expo, and comic book publisher. In collaboration with the Hathors, the Ancients, the Arcturians, and the Andromedans, Xane brings the soul's essence to the surface, clears mental and emotional blocks, activates crystals, removes lower vibrational attachments, and directly modifies timelines. His graphic novel series Righteous and his unique modality Soul Essence Activation are both powerful catalysts for enlightenment for readers and clients alike. Well, welcome, and I'm so excited to jump in with you, Xane. That's a lot of stuff, and I want to break some of that down. But first, I'd love for you to share, a little bit about your origin story. How did all this begin for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I do want to say is that, as you know, I work with the Hathors, as you mentioned in my bio there. And while you were doing that meditation and activation, I requested their presence for that activation for individuals as well. So it actually is very similar to what I do with them, what you were saying. So it aligned perfectly. So if anybody were to have even thought about skipping that little part, I want them to go back and watch it and really pay attention to that and feel that energy from both you and your guides and me and mine.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And the guides really do, everybody's guides come in during that. It just takes, awareness going in for a moment, and that's how it works. So thank you for presencing that and bringing in the Hathors.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Okay. So my origin story is interesting because I like to say I was raised by scientists. I had influence from my parents and uncles and grandparents who were all engineers of one level or another. And so they did not look at this world and say that there was any spirituality whatsoever. I was not introduced to church going or anything like that. Science was truly my religion growing up. And so for the first 40 years of my life, that was the case. And I didn't really even have any awakening sorts of experiences or demonstrations of my gifts or anything until that 40-year mark when I had ayahuasca. And I even was a reluctant participant in the ayahuasca. But at that moment, the moment that it started, I could hear the voice of universal knowledge talking to me in my head. Not only was it very clear and loud, but it also, I instantly knew that it was the voice of universal knowledge. And so I took all of that science information, all of that science backing, and I said, this doesn't apply anymore. This does not explain what I'm experiencing. Bye. And I just threw it all away and was a child. I got to experience the world from the wonder of a child. I was so excited that there was so much more to it. And that voice taught me all kinds of things about past lives and how the world works and who we truly are and all of this in this one first time ever doing anything like that. So it was quite the eye-opening experience, and everything changed from that point forward. I started channeling. I started receiving not just information, but mediumship. I was channeling for people, and then I discovered my healing gifts and so on and so forth. So everything just exploded from there.
Wow, that's an incredible awakening story. Was this just from one Aya experience, or was this multiple times over a period?
One
Oh,
Aya experience, and the administrator got the dosage wrong, so I was underdosed. I only had about a 15-minute ayahuasca experience instead of the normal 3 or 4 hour experience. So it was very quick and very powerful, and it changed absolutely everything.
wow, that sounds like it was divinely orchestrated, as those things often are.
Always are. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Wow. So, that just brings up so many more questions. First of all, so you had this voice of universal knowledge speaking to you. Did it introduce itself as I'm the voice of universal? How did you know who
It
you were
didn't
speaking
have to. I just
to?
knew. It was
Okay.
it was probably my first download, was just this complete knowing. And I didn't doubt it. I mean, it was just so clear to me. And so what it did do, though, is it taught me lots of different things, even to the point of um, the psychedelic or the plant medicine experience often carries with it some body discomforts. And so one of those body discomforts was kind of an upset stomach. And when it first started, I felt that upset stomach. And when it started talking to me, I would say it got a little bit worse. And the first question that I remember asking, here's the voice of universal knowledge, ask me anything, essentially. I asked, an icebreaker question. I said, well, how should I live? And it said, okay, well, here. And all of a sudden I've got the urge to change my body positioning. So the way that I was sitting, it wanted me to change the way that I was sitting. And so I did. It was a subtle change, really. But as soon as I got into the position that it wanted me to, my stomach discomfort was immediately withdrawn. So I was feeling totally comfortable in that situation. And I laughed and I said to the voice of universal knowledge, well, thanks, but that's not what I meant, right? Like, how should I live? What should I do? What's important? And of course, it told me you need to love more. And at the time, I thought, what? What do you mean I need to love more? I love my family and I love my friends, I guess. What else do I need to love? I really had no idea. And so it taught me essentially through imagery. It's great because your background actually is a representation of what I saw. So I saw the earth, like an image of the earth in space. And if you've ever noticed, sometimes in those images, there's like this atmosphere blue band that kind of goes around the edge of the earth because you're actually seeing the atmosphere. That's what I saw. And I knew immediately that I was the earth in this image, and then there was all this beautiful stars and nebula and black holes and planets and things that were outside of me. And that little gap represented the fact that I didn't love all, that I didn't love everything and everyone and this experience and so on and so forth. And that gap represented the my inability to access the entire universe. And that as soon as I went ahead and loved all, then all of that would be available to me. And so it told me all of that with just one image instantly. And that's really the foundation upon which I've built the rest of my life.
Ooh, that gives me chills. Just I love that. And I think, that really is the most important piece of the puzzle.
It is.
It's because it's self-love. I mean, it's all one. Ultimately, self-love is love of all. And
Yes.
when we can talk about love all day long, but it's something that has to be felt and experienced. It's so experiential. So that's so powerful. Um, so I want to know about, you mentioned the Hathors, you talk about the Andromedans, the Ancients, the Arcturians, who else? There's some others in there maybe.
Yeah, those are the major players.
Um,
Yeah.
so, were these all kind of dropping in throughout a period of time? Did they come like, hey, we're the Andromedans? And, like, how did you know, first of all, the
Right.
difference, and how did that all unfold for you?
Right. Well, I didn't know the difference for the longest time. And what I did discover was after that first ayahuasca experience, at any time, I could go ahead and speak to the voice of universal knowledge. I could just go ahead and ask a question and I would receive an answer. And for a long time, I would ask every once in a while, who is this that's talking to me? And every time they said, it doesn't matter. What matters is the healing. What matters is the information. You humans like to categorize things and put them in boxes and say, oh, this is the Arcturians and this is the Andromedans or whatever, because it makes you feel comfortable. You are seeking comfort by asking this question, and there's no reason for you to. All you need to know is that we're here to help you. We're your team. And that's really what I heard for the longest time. And if I ask today, I still get that exact same answer. So what I ended up doing was speaking with very powerful healers and channels and really essentially triangulating. So I would talk to Michaela Sheldon, for instance, and she told me, okay, it's the Hathors and it's this group. And so I'd write that all down. And then I'd talk to someone else who is a channel. And if they said the same names, enough of them said the same names over and over again, I really triangulated, okay, this is the identity of who I'm speaking with, even though they don't want to tell me because they say that it's essentially a distraction. It's still information that I've been able to use and talk to other people who also channel those beings. And for instance, I read, Tom Kenyon is probably the most famous Hathor channel. And I read one of his books called The Hathor Material. And it was amazing to read it because every sentence I already knew that. I already knew that. I already knew that, because that's the information that I was downloading. So even more confirmation just by reading that. So really, I'm a little bit unique in that I still use somewhat of a scientific method when it comes to doing this spiritual work, because the way that I look at it is spirituality is just science that science hasn't figured out yet. We're essentially ahead of them. We're blazing this new trail, and one of the reasons that they have trouble keeping up with us is because they need 100% accurate answers and 100% reproducible results, where what we know as beings of light that are working with these incredible guides and so forth is that every experience is its own unique thing. And so there isn't a 100% reproducible experiment that you could do, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. So what we see is that, as I said, we're blazing this trail and they're having to open themselves up to the possibility that it's not 100% reproducible. And they're starting to do that through quantum mechanics and things like that. I love this whole process because bringing in that kind of logic, that kind of understanding with the spirituality makes it more powerful, and it helps people who are a little bit on the fence or a little bit unsure about how all of this is to be able to bring that perspective. It really does close that gap and make it so more and more people can open themselves up to the possibility.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And myself being an experiencer my whole life, I get the value of the scientific side of things. I I oftentimes just have an experience and I have no idea why, or like how to explain it to someone. But I appreciate when I do find that knowledge. And the people, I feel like right now, the people that can marry the science and the spirituality are really taking us to the next level. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza he's brilliant at that,
Right. Right.
Bruce Lipton and, a lot of the Greg Braden, a lot of those guys are really doing that and so many more. And I feel like that's kind of the bridge that we
Yeah.
need to merge and make spirituality less woo woo and more acceptable to everybody, and I do feel us going there.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Is that the construction?
Yeah. You can hear it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it sounds
So,
like a little
yeah.
buzzing.
Right. Yeah. It's not too bad right now. Hopefully it stays that way.
Right, it's all good. So the next thing I want to talk about is you have a technique for helping people overcome, I guess, difficult emotions or traumas instantly. Would you
Mhm.
share about that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that the Hathors afford me to be able to do is to do something that it's an extension of the soul essence activation, and one of those things is retuning your emotional frequency to a more tolerable or a more acceptable or a more reduced version of that same emotion. Emotions, of course, are just frequencies, and when we have a situation happen to us, we tune into the frequency that best represents or best helps us in that situation. So we're going to tune if we have a fear situation, we're going to tune into a fear emotion. Okay, so what does that do? Inside that frequency, we are receiving information about how to react, how much adrenaline to pump through our system, how we should respond, and it kind of clouds the mind, or at least really focuses us in on survival or whatever. So if we naturally tune into a fear frequency that is somewhat debilitating, then that becomes a problem later on in life. Maybe you're trying to just have a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden you jump into this panic attack or fear-based attack, right? So by listening to an activation like this, what we're essentially doing is retuning you. Yes, we're retuning you to still a fear frequency, but the fear frequency is considerably less painful or less problematic, and much easier to handle. So in those situations, now you can say, oh, okay, so I was feeling fear and I understand why I would feel fear because I'm a human being. And of course I would. And the situation, I guess it didn't really call for that much fear. I feel so much better. I don't need to be in that much of a fear situation anymore. And then what we find is that every time they listen to that activation while they're experiencing the fear response, it retrains the body to tune into a frequency that is much less problematic for them. So that's just one of the many types of things that people can do. And I look at it like, remember that you've got a prescription in your medicine cabinet. And that prescription is, okay, I'm feeling angry. Oh, I need an angry pill. I'm going to take an angry pill, and that's going to lower my anger experience. It's going to change my frequency to a different one. This is so powerful. Now, all we have to do is say, actually, it's not a pill. It's just an activation that you can listen to and reduce that anger feeling, and so that you can address it with a calm mind and get a handle on what's going on and move from being a 3D being who is surrounded by their emotions to move to being a 5D being who can step back and say, oh, look at Zane and the emotions that he's experiencing. Isn't that interesting? Why might he be feeling this way? And it's so much easier to handle those sorts of things and then make yourself available to being open to whatever the lesson might be in that situation, rather than just being surrounded by this very difficult emotional experience.
Cool. Um, so I'd love to unpack a little bit more. I mean, we talk a lot about activations on this series. I do activations, lots of people do activations, but we never really talk about breaking down what exactly is an activation and why do we call it that? Would you explain that from your perspective?
Sure. Sure. Okay. So that's an interesting one because, like I said, I came from a very different background when it came to these activations. And so I looked at them just from the practicality. I didn't really look at them from the woo-woo perspective, to use your terminology, right? So I just did them through experimentation. Once I realized that I could do them, then I just worked with a whole bunch of different people and said, okay, I'm going to do a thing and let's see what happens. And so in my case, I make a sound. Sometimes I make a tonal sound, and then that seems to instantaneously trigger an emotional response or a change in the energy field of the person that I'm working with. And really, it was through experimentation that I discovered all the different types of activations that I can do. And even so much so that someone in taking one of my programs, for instance, could say, hey, could you make me an activation to handle this strange, very unique to me situation? And I will check with my guides and I'll get a yes or a no. And it's always a yes. And then I will just go ahead and perform the activation as I'm directed to by my guides. And the results always seem to work. Okay, so we could break down what an activation is. Yes, I'm working with an extra dimensional collective that is making an energy change in the individual. They're making a change to their energy field. Or I can just say it works. And that's really all we need to know.
Yeah. Um, okay, it is, I mean, I've heard you on your YouTube channel do some of these, and it seems like they are pretty fast. Like you don't need a half an hour to do these things. So would you be willing to offer one to the listeners and viewers right now?
I would absolutely love to. It'd be my absolute pleasure. And the ones on YouTube are very short, right? They're just a moment, just a quick sound that I make, essentially. But yet at the same time, I still can do the 20 or 30-minute activations that are very specifically directed for an individual or for a group. And what you find is, as powerful as that one moment activation is, you receive that for the full 20 minutes. So it's quite the energy level. And so in many cases, people kind of have to be ready for that high frequency activation when it's going to last that long. But yes, for a short one, I would love to do it. And so one of the ones I would love to do right now would be, just in case anybody in your audience is actually experiencing a negative entity attachment, I would like to go ahead and do a negative entity attachment clearing. For many people, this will remove the entity and they'll be good for good for the rest of their lives. But for some, they will experience a recurrence of the negative entity, and that just means that they have more work that they have to do, and that's where my class comes in, and then I'm sure we'll talk about. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and do a negative entity removal activation for everyone. So if everybody could just go ahead and close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath and relax as you exhale. Feel yourself sinking into the chair that you're sitting in, the bed that you're laying on, wherever it is that you are. Feel the gravity of the earth pulling you tight and close. From here, this activation is very quick and easy. I'm going to say breath in. You're going to take a nice big deep breath. You're going to hold it at the top, and you're going to wait for me to say the word awaken, and then you can exhale. This is the moment that the negative entity will be cleared from your field. Breath in. Oh, excellent. All right. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I receive feedback when I do that, and I always receive feedback based on maybe the number of people that will listen to it, maybe the strength of the negative entity that was removed. It can be different every time, but I definitely felt a big amount of feedback from that. So I know that many people are going to experience it and feel it and notice a big difference.
Awesome. And this works regardless of whether someone's watching in real time or after.
Recording, absolutely. Yeah, just like the YouTube videos.
Yeah, awesome. So I'd love to hear more about, I know a big part of your work is about, I don't know if you call them alien implants or negative implants and entities like you just talked about. Can you unpack a little bit of like why or where do these come from? How do people get these things in the first place?
Absolutely. It's always the same thing. They signed up for them before that they came here. So it's in your soul contract. It's a part of your awakening experience. And so for many people, that awakening experience is extremely important because if you think about it, there are so many different ways to wake up. And imagine, I imagine it like a big list that you get before you're born. Okay, well, if I'm not this far along that I want to be, which type of awakening experience what should I get? Oh, well, we could do a near death experience. That works very well for lots of people. It could be the death of a family member. It could be a plant medicine experience, like it was in my case, or it could be an alien implant or a negative entity or something like that. And so we sign up for these things. We go, yeah, okay, negative entity. That sounds interesting. Let's try that on for size. Okay, so now you go into your real life and you go, what in the heck did I do? What a dumb mistake I made, because this entity experience is torture. I'm being tortured by this thing. It's keeping me awake at night. It's making me so I can't think very clearly. It just goes on and on, the difficulties and the problems that negative entities cause. So a lot of times when people hear that they signed up for it, they think either you can't be right. Why would I ever do something like that? Or they say, this was the dumbest mistake that I could have ever made. Like I don't understand why I would do this to myself. So ultimately, we do this to ourselves because negative entities or alien implants or whatever it might be can lead us down a new path. So let's say that you've decided not to discover your life's mission or your life's purpose. You've decided not to do to discover what your gifts are, or you want to do that, but you can't figure out how. So so the negative entity now comes into your life, and now you have a decision to make. Well, how do I get rid of this thing? Obviously, something wasn't working right before. I need to take some sort of action. And a lot of times that action leads people to go to a shaman or a light worker to say, oh, okay, shaman or light worker, please clear this for me. So they do, just like I did a second ago. And the light worker or shaman, maybe they spend 30 minutes, maybe they spend an hour, and they say, okay, you're all good. Go home now, or we'll see you later. You're all clear. And so that's what happens. They go home. They say, okay, everything's great. I'm feeling really good. And it works, right? Because it is working. It's powerful. But then an hour, a day, a week, even a month later, the entity comes back. And so now what are they going to do? Are they going to call that same light worker a shaman and go, oh, you got to do it again? And then you keep doing this over and over again. Every week, you've got to talk to your shaman. You've got to talk to someone about removing this thing. Well, that gets very expensive. I'm not a pharmaceutical company. I don't want to keep having people come back to me because the entities come back. I'm way more interested in helping people defeat them or remove them themselves. And the process of removing an entity yourself is an ascension process. So guess what? They end up discovering their gifts. They end up discovering their life's mission. or whatever it is that they need to do to get over past traumas, PTSD, depression, on and on. And that process now makes it so entities don't come back, and they are back on track with their life in the way that they signed up for it with their soul contract.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, I love that it doesn't have to be this ongoing difficult thing. Like so many things in life, you can just, if you get it done once, then that's the way to do it. So I love that concept. And excuse me, I love that you've integrated that into your work. I've known a lot of people that have been in one way or another tortured by what they think of as aliens or some sort of implant situation. I've seen some crazy stuff, and sometimes it can be really, really disturbing. So it's great that you have this technique, and I've oftentimes sent people to like introspective hypnosis or types of hypnotherapy that you could go deep, but that again is hundreds of dollars and it takes hours. It's worth it, but this is so fast, and from what you're saying, it sounds like your clients have experienced it being very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a class. So I teach people how to step into their power, how to raise their frequency, how to corral the mind, because everybody who comes to me essentially would classify themselves as overthinkers. And that overthinking, especially when it comes to spiritual problems, doesn't work very well. If you think about it from the perspective of our 3D brains are all about survival. They produce thoughts that help us in this 3D world. So if you've got a leak in your roof, you don't go, well, I'm sure that'll just go away on its own. No, your 3D mind goes, okay, there's a leak in the ceiling, so we got to figure out what's going on. You get up on the roof and you investigate it, and you go, oh, I see, this shingle isn't attached very well. I need to go ahead and fix that. Yay! The 3D mind has done its job. It's perfect. It's gotten the solution to the problem. But if your 3D mind is trying to figure out why you have a negative entity attachment, it doesn't work very well. Why me? What's the situation? Why would I have to have this? What do I have to do about it? Is it me? Did I do something wrong? Am I being punished? Well, maybe it's because of this. Maybe it's because of that. Right? So this 3D mind has nothing to grab onto. So it just keeps thinking and powering through and making you miserable because you get frustrated, you get impatient, you get disappointed, you start to think that you're not good enough, that you have unworthiness. So now all of a sudden you've got all these negative emotions piling on top of this experience that you have already. So it's all about unpacking all of that, helping people with those emotions so that they can start to think clearly again. And once they think clearly, I teach them how to think. Like, it's amazing because when you look at spirituality or metaphysics. Metaphysics is an incredible concept, and it's very mentally healthy. But the problem is there's metaphysics and then there's application. Metaphysics is over here, this beautiful idea, this awesome thing, but how do you apply it to your day-to-day life? That's the hard part. And so that's one of the major parts of what I do is help people see, oh my gosh, every second of every day, I can apply metaphysics to it and make my life so much easier, so much better, so much brighter. And then, like I said, the experience discovering your gifts and your mission.
Awesome. And then when people learn this technique and they've been trained, are they able to do that for their loved ones or friends and other people as well?
We see that all the time. It isn't necessarily, I mean, it is a fairly complicated program, right? So I'm not doing teacher training. Yes, but maybe I will with your great suggestion right there. But ultimately, yeah, they learn so much. They start applying it to their lives, and then they can see it in other people's lives, and they go, "Oh, I know it's exactly what's happening in that person's brain. If I could just tell them this or tell them that, maybe they could start to circumnavigate that so that they don't have that same problem over and over again."
Love it. Yeah. Teacher training coming up, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Definitely. The more people that know these techniques, the better. And let's just get everybody clear so we can all ascend together, right? So I love that conversation, and I want to talk a little bit about your spirituality TV. You were telling me about that on our first call, called Cosmic TV, and it sounds like exactly what we need. Would you share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Cosmic Television, I took over. It was previously called Awoken TV, and we're in the process of totally reimagining it. So, if you were to go to cosmictelevision.com right now, and right now is February 16th, 2022, or somewhere soon in this region, you're not going to see that much to it. But in the fall of this year, 2022, around October, we're going to be releasing our first full season, and we have over 40 content creators already creating amazing content. Okay, so what is this content, and why would I even want to tune into this? Because there's Gaia and there's all these other things. So what we're doing is we're taking the spirituality content that we all love, and it helps us heal. We're taking permaculture concepts that helps the earth heal and helps humanity, all these different types of inspirational concepts, and we're putting them in a very different format. Instead of the standard format where it's just someone talking to a camera or an interview, what we're doing is we're creating shows. So now let's borrow from the mass market approach. So the mass market approach, there's plenty of formats that have worked very well. You can watch reality shows and game shows and cooking shows and all these makeover shows. There's all these different show concepts and categories that haven't really been used in a spiritual space. So that's what we're doing. We're blazing that trail to create something that is entertaining and something that is inspiring. So when we come home from work and we want to watch Netflix and we want to make some popcorn, instead of sitting there going, okay, I'm going to watch Netflix. Oh, there's a murder here, or there's this terrible thing that happens over here. Oh, it's a disaster movie, blah, blah, blah. That's not what we want. We want to be inspired. We want to be excited. We want to love. So, how can we do that and still be entertained at the same time? I feel like that's a big gap that's missing. And that is the way that the world is going. So, why not us help blaze that trail by bringing those two things together? Those formats that work very well and that are very entertaining, and this inspirational content. I have visions and dreams and imaginings of say somebody's at home and they're watching Cosmic TV, and there's someone in the house in the family who doesn't align net yet with spiritual concepts. Maybe they walk in the room and they say, "Oh, what reality show are you watching right now?" And they say, "Oh, well, sit down and check it out." And the next thing they know, they say, "Oh my gosh, this is a reality show about psychics." And there's these people that are going to different psychics to find out which psychic is the right one for them. What? This is crazy. And so my I envision more and more people waking up because it's a familiar feeling. They aren't just watching someone talk to camera. They're watching a piece of entertainment that might just be the catalyst to their awakening.
Awesome. I'm like, yeah, I want to be on one of those reality shows. That sounds like fun. And I am a sucker for reality shows too. I enjoy those things like so many of us do. And I love, love, love the concept of integrating spiritual concepts, ideas, teachings, awareness, consciousness into what we're consuming on the TV. And I haven't had cable TV, the news for like decades, but I still watch Netflix. I still have, Hulu and things like that. So, and of course, YouTube. And we can absolutely, I feel like a huge market for that. So I'm on board, tell me where to sign up. I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love, you brought up the news for a second there, right? The news is a perfect example of a very 3D experience. And I like to call the news the How I Could Die show. So you turn into the news to find out, oh, the hurricane, oh, the disaster, oh, the fire, oh, the murder, oh, the disease. oh my gosh, I have to protect myself from all these things. This is terrible what's going on. And so that's the brain again trying to survive and trying to bring in information so that it can circumnavigate death. Everybody has an action plan. If somebody broke into the house, what are you going to do? That's that 3D brain trying to figure out how to survive in those sorts of situations. So the masses flock to the light on the TV when the How I Could Die show is on, so that they can find out how not to die. But instead, not only do they find that out, but they get brought down to a lower vibrational state because they have fear and they have, worry about this sort of thing, or they get frustrated at government or whatever, or corporations, and they get angry. What it does is it brings everybody into that lower frequency. So, we want the opposite of that. We want the How I Can Thrive show. And we really want to promote the heck out of that and teach people how powerful they are and how amazing their life can be here as a 3D being transitioning to a 5D being on this planet.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so loving that idea. I'm all in. So keep us posted on the progress of that and how we can sign up. I want to tell people about, you have an amazing free gift, which is about anxiety or nervousness release. Will you share about that?
No, absolutely, and it's very similar to what I was talking about at the beginning of the interview here, and that is that okay. So let's say you're about to do something that would make you very nervous. For most people, the biggest fear that they have is group speaking, right? Speaking in front of an audience. So let's say that you have to give a talk, or let's say that you have to talk to your boss and ask for a raise, or maybe you want to ask someone out on a date and you feel nervous about it. This nervousness can actually interfere with the clarity of mind that you would need in order to be able to be a great performer on stage, or be suave when you ask someone out on a date. So, but because that nervousness is pulling you down, it's clouding the mind, you're having an adrenaline pump. You can hear people's voices shaking. You can feel, you can forget what you're going to say because of all that's going on. So by listening to the nervousness relief activation 10, 15 minutes before you're going to do the thing that would normally make you nervous, all that goes away. And you can be clear and open and your true self, being able to have that conversation. And I have to give an example, because when I first did it to myself, I was about to give a talk in front of over 100 people for the first time ever. And so I was deathly afraid of this situation. I couldn't handle it at all. And like I said, 10, 15 minutes before I was to go on stage, I went ahead and I gave myself a nervousness relief activation. I got up there. I'm standing at the podium as 100+ people are streaming into the room, which I knew was going to be my scariest moment. And I was so comfortable. I was so relaxed. I was leaning on the podium as people were walking in with a big smile on my face, so much so that a person in the front row said, "Wow, you seem so relaxed." I said, "Well, that's exactly what's happening. It's amazing." And so I was able to sail through and do a fantastic job on my talk, just because I wasn't scared and I wasn't worried about messing up. The the way that you mess up is you'll be worried about messing up. As soon as you don't worry about messing up anymore, you don't. So it's just this amazing experience. So anyway, all that to say, that free gift, you can download that yourself and use it for one of those situations. And then each time you do it, before you do something that you would normally be nervous about, what you'll find is you don't have to do it anymore, because you are training your body. You're retraining your body as to which frequency of emotion you should tune into. And that works for all of them. So there are more. There's anger, and there's frustration, and there's disappointment, and all these other activations that are available also on my website. If you find that one works very well for you for nervousness, but you have an anger problem, or you have an impatience problem, then all those are available as well.
Wonderful. I'm excited to try that. I know you're also writing comic books and an author, and you're just so prolific. You have so much creativity. You're creating a lot of fun stuff in the world. And I just appreciate you sharing everything. Is there any final thought before we go? Maybe you want to tell people about your writing or
Sure,
something
I'd be
else?
happy to. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many different things that we can talk about. So let's put something in here that might be valuable to others, and that is, we talk about wishing, wanting, and knowing. I talk about this all the time. So if you're in a place where you're wishing for something, oh man, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could have what I want. The wishing is essentially the least likely thing or approach that's actually going to get you what you want. Wishing, we only wish when we think that it's impossible. We wish that we could fly. We wish we could go back in time and change things. We wish we could win the lottery. Wishing means you're never going to get it. So you don't want to wish what maybe you want to want. Oh, okay. Well, I want this. Okay, so what's the chance that you're going to get the thing that you want? It's probably 50-50 at the very least. So it's better than wishing, which is not going to get you anything. Wanting, though, it still comes from a place of lack. So wanting something that you do not have states to the universe, I don't have this thing. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it. So it's better than wishing, but it's not where you want to end up. So where do you want to end up? You want to end up at knowing. You know you're going to get the thing that you want. You know that the universe is going to comply to help you, conspire to help you even better. So when you look at something and you say, "Boy, I want that, but I'm not sure," consider knowing it. And when you consider knowing it, okay, I know that I'm going to get this decision that's going to be made by the court. I know that they're going to make this decision that I want. Well, maybe there's still a doubt in your head that says, "Yeah, but." Well, listen to that doubt for a second. See what it is that's coming up. It might be the clue that you need to be able to move from wanting to knowing. Maybe that doubt will tell you, "Oh, you know what? You should wear a suit instead of what you were planning to wear," and then you move into knowing. You'll get the information on how to move from wanting to knowing. All you have to do is be open to it. So that's my parting advice for today.
I love it. And it brings to mind a quote by Gandhi: be the change you wish to see in the world, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Zane. Thank you to everybody watching. Have a wonderful day or evening, and namaste.